This is the fictional mindbender. Batman the Animated Series is a staple for any good recommendation for great superhero shows, even though Batman isn't a superhero in it. Coming off the success of the Michael Keaton Batman franchise from 1989, the series was groundbreaking in its portrayal and introduction of the character and the character's whole gallery to the point where they became household names. It single-handedly made a large portion of the DC comic universe also mainstream, and went off to kickstart several other spin-offs as well that continued up until about the mid-2000s, as in the double O's. But there was one bone I had to pick with the series, and that was on how the relationships with their version of the Bat family had soured over time. That is, it's hinted that in the latter seasons of Batman and Robin's, that a fallout was starting to happen between the characters, starting with Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne over Bruce's decision to keep a secret from him that Barbara Gordon was Batgirl, someone who was a love interest to the then Robin. Batman and Robin's relationship was always somewhat strained, but was often softened by Dick's offbeat humor and one-liners, or Batman's occasional displays of care for his young ward. But the latter series removes these barriers and finally breaks the relationship. Hard. Now, even though he comes back with his own identity as Nightwing, there's still a touch of ribbing from Grayson. And this continues as explained in Batman Beyond, where we find out that not only Dick Grayson, but the entire Bat family has cut ties with Bruce altogether. Or, rather, it was the other way around. And that it left a bitter taste in their mouths afterwards, which a then older Barbara Gordon warns Terry McGinnis about what awaits him in the future. That Batman uses young people as his soldiers, and then coldly cuts them off without explanation. And even Terry does come to a point where he almost falls into the same line of self-pity/loathing as well. And it's not long after that we find out why, when it's shown that the Joker eventually caught on to the importance of Batman's support system, kidnaps Tim Drake, the then Robin at that time, tortures and breaks him so he can kill Batman, but Tim manages to resist enough to kill the Joker instead, but the damage is done. Bruce cuts off Tim for his own sake, and not too long after that, Batgirl as well, whom apparently he was in a relationship with at the time, which many fans find creepy. And this was also the source of why Dick had finally cut ties as well. Now, though this seems to resolve itself with reconciliation for the most part, the reason why it bothered me so much was the accusation leveled by Tim and Barbara against Bruce Wayne. That it was Batman's idea, or pushing, for them to join his private war against Gotham's scum and villainy, and that he was just a cold-hearted bastard at the end of the day. Oh, how we forget. Fact was that both characters were shown choosing on their own volition to get involved in crime fighting, and that Batman actually tried to discourage them from it, but they would not be swayed. Naivety, passion, both. Who's to say? Most of the Bat family has a screwed up history anyway. But fact was that they all chose to get involved and then blamed Batman for their choice when the bill came due. Old Tim Drake says it best when he describes his youthful days swinging through the still canyons of Gotham and punching crooks as fun and games. And that was the reality of it. With the possible exception of Dick Grayson, none of them took the life of a crime fighter seriously. The toll that it takes on a person over time, in their relationships, on their personal psyche, and of course, that death was always one breath away. By the time of the final encounter with the Joker, Dick had already separated from them. And I know there was a Batman Beyond comic story that went into that, but for my canon, it doesn't count. Either way, it took the horrific experience with the Joker to wake all of them up, even Batman, to the grim realities of crime fighting. And, though to Barb's and Tim's credit, they still wanted to continue after the incident, again, them making a choice, Bruce took it out of their hands. His war on crime had always been his and his alone, motivated by his past. And Batman Beyond does an excellent job showing that despite not dying somehow, because he's Batman, it does finally take a toll on the iron-willed Bruce Wayne. And when he's finally a hair's breadth away from killing someone, after his older body temporarily fails him, even with a bat suit, that's when Bruce knew to call it quits. The final reconciliation is fine and great. I love it. I love happy endings, guilty as charged. But I also would have liked seeing the Bat fam take ownership of their choices rather than just pinning it all on Batman. To be sure, Batman is a bastard. But as Amanda Waller of all people notes, no one cared more about people than Batman. Even though he wasn't superhuman, his achievements were superhuman, among other superhumans and gods. And he was aware that it pertained to him and him alone. Not everyone was a genius detective or a master fighter. He took in partners in his war on crime to protect them from their own choices, and to teach them and pass on as much as he could to them to help them survive. Because again, they're not him. Because, as good as they were, again, they weren't him. Even Barbara Gordon, who was arguably the best when it came to crime fighting next to Batman himself. Hell, even his own son, Terry McGinnis, wasn't him. And that's the irony of the story in the DC animated universe, as far as the Bat family is concerned, is that Terry was the only one who publicly takes ownership of his choice to become a crime fighter, because Terry McGinnis was also one of those people who chose to go into crime fighting, even though Bruce tried to push him away from that, even to the point of nearly allowing him to get himself killed. So, what do you guys think? Do you think that Batman actually manipulated or pushed young people around him into joining his war on crime? Do you think that the former crime fighters were just ignorant and couldn't face up to their own choices? Let me know in the comments below, but this is the Fictional Mindbender, and you guys have a good day.